Ah, the crossover event. You're telling me that Zack and Cody interacted with Hannah Montana, Jimmy and Timmy changed universes, and the Ninja Turtles partnered with the Power Rangers? These were seriously some of the most epic, most anticipated episodes of the entire year. And they really go down in history. I mean, hey, I'm talking about them all these years later, aren't I? And while I'm sure I will talk about all of these down the road, there seem to be a few that people have forgotten about. And it brought some of the biggest shows together. That's right, I'm talking about the crossovers of Lilo and Stitch the series. What? Don't remember any crossovers? Well, like I said, I don't think a lot of people do. Lilo and Stitch the series wasn't necessarily a primetime cartoon that I sought out. I really only remember watching it in the afternoons on Disney, but it had 4 crossover episodes, which confirms that Lilo and Stitch, American Dragon Jake Long, Kim Possible, The Proud Family, and Recess all exist in the same universe, which gives huge implications for each show, and we are going to get into it all today. Now, I don't really want to get into the plot holes or general weirdness of each show individually, like the fact that we have a shape-shifting dragon or a teenager fighting a 40-year-old man, but we'll more so get into how the Lilo and Stitch episode influences each show's individual world. And while we will look at each episode in the order it aired, these episodes actually don't cross over with each other, so there really isn't any overarching plot point that we are following. And all these episodes are on Disney Plus if you want to go watch them yourself. But just a little refresher, Lilo and Stitch the series takes place after the 2003 film Stitch the movie, in which pods of previous experiments got released all over Hawaii, and the TV show follows Lilo and gang trying to find them before Gantu does. And at the end of every episode, because let's be honest, it's a kid's show and Lilo is pretty much going to win every time, Lilo finds the one true place for each experiment, like the experiment Melty working for a recycling plant, or Richter helping the ice cream shop make milkshakes. Anyway, first up, American Dragon Jake Long and Lilo and Stitch in Morpholomew. This episode follows Lilo trying to win a skateboard for this boy she is trying to impress, though just for some reason I don't think it's going to work out. But she has to win the Velociraptor 1200 via a skateboarding competition that she's not even old enough to compete in, which again makes me question why, wait. How old is Lilo? 7. Yeah, why is a 7-year-old bending over backwards to impress? I mean, he has to be at least 10. I don't know, I'm not gonna get any more into that. But luckily, the experiment in this episode can make you shapeshift into anything it sees, which we'll get to in a second. But we change scenes to show Jake and crew are on the island too, exploring reports that there have been magical creatures roaming around. Which, guys, it's the experiments. So obviously, Jake gets a little sidetracked with the skateboarding competition too. And then even more sidetracked when he goes all dragon mode and is captured by Gantu, who thinks he's the shapeshifting experiment. But some funny things happen here. When Spud sees Gantu, he calls him a land shark, which actually in season 2 of American Dragon Jake Long, we do get actual land sharks. And while Jake is somewhat unfazed by the entire situation, it's when he eventually escapes and sees Stitch for the first time that he freaks out for some reason. And while all of that is happening with Jake, Lilo needed a disguise and stumbled upon a picture of Jake to morph into to compete in that skateboarding competition, only to like epically fail. Like, Lilo, what the f did you think was going to happen? Like, my girl is not a pro skater whatsoever, and she thinks that she can enter in this competition and win? No. And then when she's on the ground, Foo Dog comes to check up because she's still disguised as Jake, and she freaks out at a talking dog. Like, guys, let's get some things straight here. Jake, you are a dragon. You see magical creatures all the time, some more f***ed up than the last ones. And you see this cute little blue alien and you think, oh, hell no. And Lilo, you freak out at a talking dog when meanwhile you deal with aliens and a talking hamster on a daily basis? Get your act together, guys. But obviously everything ends up working out, and Morpholomew ends up working at a costume shop to change people into anything they want. But universe implications and connections. So these episodes as a whole confirm one thing in each show: aliens exist, though in some shows we do get to that. Though here it is also confirming that magic and aliens exist. And something else that you might not have known, because it's not in this episode, but this crossover also confirms that the show Fillmore exists in this universe too. In the Halloween episode of American Dragon Jake Long in season 1, you can actually see Ingrid Third attending Jake's Halloween party, along with some of the cheerleaders from Middleton High from Kim Possible. But those outfits could have been a coincidence, though we'll be able to confirm it later. We are threading the needle, guys. And up next, we have the Proud Family and Lilo and Stitch in Spats. The Proud Family just booked a visit to Pleakley's bed and not breakfast to see Wizard Kelly's smack up throwdown Hawaiian style, y'all. Which I said I wouldn't get into it, but how do all these people barely bat an eye at the fact that there are aliens like all around? Like Pleakley literally has one eye and 4 legs, and Jumba has 4 eyes. I mean, I guess he wears glasses and a mustache when he wants to cover up, and there are so many jokes about the motel being a spaceship, though it is eventually just accepted. But this episode's experiment is awoken by Sugar Mama, who mistakes the pod for a bath bomb, and quickly Experiment 397 shows off what he can do. If zapped by Spats, the two that were zapped will argue with each other indefinitely, which was actually designed so that the two people arguing would be so busy arguing that they wouldn't even notice their planet being taken over. But Spats eventually blasts everyone, including Penny and Lilo. But other than everyone arguing, the biggest concerns in this episode seem pretty minor. The Proud Family lost their luggage, and so Lilo is helping Penny write an article for school since her notebook was in that suitcase. And Lilo is so worried about the people arguing that it's gonna leave really bad reviews for the bed and not breakfast. But everyone makes it down to Wizard Kelly's smack up throwdown Hawaiian style, y'all, where Spats has pretty much zapped the entire crowd who is arguing and fighting. I personally love Sugar Mama taking down Gantu, but they realize that you essentially need time to calm down for Spats' powers to go away. Aww. So Lilo has everyone in the crowd count to 10 while they have Gantu pinned in the wrestling ring. Yay, kid shows, everyone happy-go-lucky. And Spats' one true place is with Wizard Kelly, so he can have his wrestlers get angry and beat each other up more. Kinda savage if you ask me. But back to the universe implications and connections. Like we said earlier, the Proud Family is now very aware of the existence of aliens. And remember that article that Penny had to write earlier? Yeah, well, she wrote it about the quaint alien bed and not breakfast of Hawaii, which also ended up getting published in the local newspaper, which I'm pretty sure Lilo and crew are trying to stay on the DL a little bit, hence why Pleakley and Jumba have disguises. So it doesn't really seem like the smartest thing to do if you want to stay in hiding. But of course, it is ignored after this episode anyway, and so is the Proud Family's knowledge of aliens. That is until the Proud Family louder and prouder, when Penny gets so good at basketball that she plays against a space octopus from Saturn. I don't know. I haven't seen the show. But also, since this episode released prior to the Kim Possible episode, this episode actually connects Kim Possible to Lilo and Stitch. As in a previous episode of The Proud Family, Penny lists Kim Possible as a strong female to admire.
If you haven't heard, women are free to do for themselves. Haven't you ever heard of Oprah, Janet Jackson, J-Lo, Kim Possible?
And while I was doing research for this video, a point kept coming up that Jake Long has mentioned that he's childhood friends with Penny Proud, though I was never able to find that episode if it exists. But either way, this episode confirms that they are all connected anyway. Up next, Kim Possible and Lilo and Stitch in Rufus. The episode opens with Stitch being abducted by a spaceship, who we later learn is Dr. Draken working with Hamsterville to clone Stitch 1,000 times over. And meanwhile, Lilo tells Jumba and Pleakley, who reaches out to Kim Possible via her website that they had in an issue of Kim Style magazine. But Kim and Ron arrive and learn about the existence of aliens, though Jumba is convinced that Rufus is one of his experiments. But Kim and Lilo eventually figure out that it was Draken that took Stitch and set out to save him, and bing bang boom, they do it! Racket and Shigo are defeated. Rufus is not an experiment. I just didn't want to go into every little detail, cause it's like every other episode of Kim Possible where she saves the day. But here are some of the universe connections. Due to the connection to American Dragon Jake Long, it could be assumed that some of Kim's nemesis actually use magic, like Monkey Fist, for example. And while we've already established that Fillmore exists in this universe, people are convinced that this character's back in this episode of Fillmore is also Kim Possible, which, like, I guess I see it, but I don't know. And lastly, this would not be Kim's last encounter with aliens, as in season 4, there's an ongoing plotline with the alien Warmonga, which eventually leads into the series finale. I did watch the episodes back to see if Kim is like thrown off by battling an alien, but she really just treated her like any other villain that she's battled, so maybe this crossover is canon and this is Kim's first time seeing an alien. Either way, let's wrap this analysis up with Recess and Lilo and Stitch in Lax. This episode focuses on laziness, as the experiment awoken is Experiment 285, Lax, who is designed to make anyone zapped by him lazy enough to stop all activities. While Jumba, Pleakley, and Stitch are all affected by Lax, Lilo and Stitch stumble upon the Recess crew. TJ, Spinelli, Gretchen, Vince, Mikey, and Gus, who are in Hawaii on a sponsored trip for Gretchen to do some planetary observation of what she thinks is a new planet. Well, then Lax stumbles upon the Recess crew and starts slowly picking them off to become lazy, only to eventually leave Gus, Gretchen, and Lilo to figure out how to stop Lax, which I actually don't really think they do. Their idea is to shoot Lax's lazy beam at Hamsterville's satellite that they found, which that's what ended up being the new planet that Gretchen saw. But their plan is to take down the satellite. The satellite has nothing to do with why everyone is lazy. But once the satellite is zapped, everyone's laziness goes away. It's almost like the writers forgot what was causing everyone to be lazy and decided to focus in on a big bad. But anyway, the episode ends with Lilo seeing the Recess gang off at the airport, where we also get to see Lax's one true place, which is to zap stressed people at the airport so that they are relaxed for their flight. Okay, to be honest, we've made most of the connections at this point. Obviously, between Lilo and Stitch and Jake Long making an appearance earlier, we can now confirm that aliens and magic exist in the Recess world. And there is actually another Recess connection in Fillmore. In fact, it's in that same clip with the alleged Kim Possible reference. Right before it pans over to what people are saying is Kim Possible, you can actually see Spinelli eating at a table in the background. But you know, we wouldn't actually be able to explore the implications of this episode further other than previously released episodes, because this is actually the last project released with the Recess characters in it. Well, there you have it. Lilo and Stitch is the center point for the Disney Channel animated universe, connecting Fillmore to the Proud Family, Kim Possible to American Dragon Jake Long. Lilo and Stitch the series connects 6 shows together into one shared universe, though these crossovers hardly considered canon. I mean, I would love for Penny to go on to be obsessed with aliens, or for Jake to have a magical alien showdown with the Dark Dragon, but these crossovers were really just throwaways and filler. It was around the release of these crossovers that Disney didn't really have a hit in the cartoon space. The Proud Family was about to end, Recess had already ended, Kim Possible was on a bit of a hiatus until season 4, and American Dragon Jake Long was kind of a problem child for Disney, as I'm sure you could tell with the drastic animation change in season 2. And it really is just so unfortunate that we didn't get more crossovers like this. It's just so fun to see your favorite characters from different shows interacting with each other. And I feel like back then you always wanted the shows to interact, but you just never knew. Though I feel like nowadays crossovers happen all the time, especially thanks to the MCU. But let me know your favorite crossovers in the comments. And let me know if you knew that all of these shared a universe. And as always, thanks for watching.